I think I figured it out. Because it allows you to do different channels. Anyway. So we figured it out. That was irritating as all hell, but thankfully, we're back now. And we can get started. Hey everybody! How is everyone doing? We're gonna do our first absolute beginner's tutorial today. I keep trying to futz with the colors because you cannot see that this is actually a magenta. And we're gonna just use this fabric that I have for the sample we're making for this demo. Hey Crafty Jester, been a while! Welcome, welcome! I mean, it looks kind of orange, but anyway, you get the picture. You get the idea. Mostly you just need the shapes. Although I did want to go over some color theory, so we are starting from the very beginning, everyone. We are going to go over Simplicity 8444. And I have two sizes, just in case. So I have the larger size range and the smaller size range. And I wanted to go over how to read this envelope. I wanted to ask questions first to see how many in the chat already know about these things, or if you're just interested in watching the whole thing. I have some samples here of some lace of what not to use. For instance, this travesty, and it's a Rochelle lace, and Rochelle lace can come made in different materials. This one is. This is the stuff that you find in Joann's or in Walmart in their trims section. And it is so scratchy. I mean, I think the only thing I would use this for is maybe doll clothes, but even then, it's like I'd feel sorry for the doll. It's that bad. So, yeah, let's see. So shiny new thing is here. You've lurked in the past, I know. You've been vocal sometimes, like active in the chat once in a while, but it's nice to have you in the chat again. You'll be pretty quiet, spinning some yarn. Yes, I can turn down the music a bit. Yes, I have a different. I'm using pretzel this time, so it's always different. Here, let's turn that down. How's that? Is that better? Is that better though? We're gonna do, I'm gonna make sure, I realize now what my problem was. Make sure we have all of these things properly configured. I was learning about channels and audio channels when you're doing recordings with Streamlabs, so I think that's what happened when I messed with things. And of course, Cal is yelling at me. I know. You just want all the attention. I don't get it though. Hey Jack, how you doing? Yeah, that's better. Good. Okay. Sweetheart, I love you and all, but I gotta get started on this, so you're gonna go in timeout. Yes, I love you though. You're so fluffy. Mwah. You're purring too. Oh, I feel bad now, but hey, he's gonna keep you company. Oh, my poor cat. He's so confused. Why do you shun me, human? Why do you shun me? Okay. So, we need to go over these basics. This tutorial is designed. It's gonna be for people who have never used a pattern before, who've never made a dress before. It would help a lot if you've made, what's up? What happened? Whoa! Oh my lord! Oh my lordy lord! I was trying to understand why Minty was reacting with that all capitals whoa, but now I see it. My goodness, Jack, thank you so much. You have been such a great supporter of my work and my stream and my Patreon. By the way, guys, I have a Patreon, so I can't thank you enough for that. You're so sweet. Thank you. I am so close to getting that Clo 3D program, and I actually did want to go over that really quick since I am putting together this tutorial for everybody, and it's going to be available for free on YouTube, so this is not going to be one of my Patreon exclusives. I want everybody to have a good foundation to make dresses from patterns, and so I wanted this to be available to everyone. So because it's going to be free, all I ask is that if you can, to donate a little bit to my fundraiser for the Clo 3D program, which is going to allow me to do flat patterning in a 3D space and provide graded patterns, especially from Otome no Sewing, for those of the larger size ranges that aren't available in Otome no Sewing. So it's got a whole slew of reasons, but that's one of the things I wanted to do. So if you can, if you want to, you can donate like a couple bucks, $5, $2, whatever, to my fundraiser. It's there's a tip page down below. There's also like a function that Minty can go over about how to tip to my channel here. So if you feel so inclined, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jack. I'm so grateful. So let's get on with it, shall we? It didn't make a sound. I just changed that up too. I don't know. I'm still figuring that out. So I'm gonna start with being able to have a good image here, and I'm gonna do a little recording. So we're gonna start recording now, so I can have this for later, for posterity. Okay, so we have our pattern. We looked through all those patterns in the pattern catalog at the store. We found that one that we want, and we find the number. We go through the drawer and we find the envelope with that number on it. In this case, it is Simplicity 8444, the Lolita jump skirt. Contrary to some popular belief, this is not a very complicated thing to put together. Yeah, it looks complicated, but when we break it down, you're gonna see it's not that complicated. What makes it complicated are the details. So all these little details that you see, and we're gonna be making the view A, by the way, and I did post a link to the fabric print designer for Spoonflower. She has a whole bunch of these prints in different colorways available on Spoonflower, and she goes by, well, her name is Amber Hubbard, and I already forgot what her name is on Etsy, not Etsy, but on Spoonflower. But you can find this fabric. It is not credited on the Simplicity pattern, so that's like one of the many controversies about this pattern. Still, we chose this pattern because it's Simplicity, and you can buy it, and it comes in a wide range of sizes, and it gives you the basic breakdown silhouette of a Lolita jump skirt. So here, these are the instructions, but first I wanted to go over the envelope. You have to find the right size for yourself. Here I have the two different size ranges. You have size 4 to 12, size 12 to 20 in US size. Now I do want to mention that these size numbers are kind of arbitrary. In this case, what they're going by is the dress form size. It's kind of more of an industry standard. So this sizing chart is more standard than what you would see in a boutique. So different brands have different sizing numbers, and they mean nothing when it comes to a size here for a pattern. So what you would look for are your measurements. Make sure you take your 3 basic measurements, your bust, your waist, and your hip measurement. In this case, your hip measurement doesn't matter so much because typically for the bodice of our jump skirt, it ends just above the hip, or it's supposed to sit just above the hip. So the main measurements that you're going to be looking at are your bust and your waist measurement. I chose the size 14 because according to this chart, that is where I fall into. My bust is 36, my waist is about 28. This does have a full elastic shirring back on it, so it's going to be very forgiving. So even if it seems like a little bit smaller, you're probably going to be fine. This is going to fit a wide range anyway, despite it fitting into a column. So my waist and my bust size fall into size 14, so that is what I have prepared. We want to look at, under this size, how much yardage we need for the project. Now it does say this also has blouses. I have notes about the blouses and what they look like, but we're not going to be going over the blouses. So the amount of yardage that you need for the blouse is not necessary right now. Okay, so you can forego the blouse requirement for yardage. Dress cut crosswise, 45 inches. Now 45-inch wide fabric is the typical bolt that you see in basically every fabric store. Quilting cottons, for instance, come typically in a 45-inch wide fabric from selvage to selvage. So we are looking at a 45-inch fabric. Sometimes you see fabrics that are 60 inches wide. They recommend a 45-inch wide fabric, mostly because that is the most common, especially for printed fabrics. So for the 45-inch fabric, for a size 14, it says 3.5 yards needed. I'm pretty sure I have enough. It also suggests that it has contrast dress center front. So on this design, you have a contrast fabric that's sort of, I don't know what to call it really, it's just a contrast fabric in the center front of the bodice. It's kind of meant to look like what's called a stomacher for 18th century clothing, which was an external part that was inserted into a dress and then pinned in. But that's kind of the illusion that we're going for. So a contrast fabric for the center front of the bodice, and the rest of it is 3.5 yards of fabric for my size 14 that I'll be doing. It also recommends some trims, so trims for the blouse, which we are disregarding. Trims for the dress, it recommends 3.125 yards of 3.5-inch wide flat lace. Here's another note that I wanted to go over. On the sample, they recommend to use Rochelle lace, or at least that's what they used when I was looking at the designers. Andrea Shu, she has a blog post going over the making of this pattern, and then somebody else did too, basically using Rochelle lace all along this top part and on the shoulder straps. I highly discourage the use of Rochelle lace. Please, if you want to have something that looks a little bit nicer than a handmade or, you know, one of your first time made things, I would recommend looking for something other than Rochelle. Rochelle is this cheap stuff. It's very easy to produce. A lot of the time it's kind of plastic feeling, and it just does not look good or feel good. So you want something a little bit better. I have this, and I think I actually have enough of it that I could probably use it. This is a little bit better. This is a Clooney lace, and it kind of looks crocheted. So what we'll be doing is we're going to be using this instead for the shoulder straps. I don't know if we'll be getting to the application of the lace today, but I did want to show that to you. Here's another option. This is actually not exactly an option for this outfit, but this is an eyelet lace, an eyelet galloon lace. A galloon means that it has a finished end on both sides of the strip of lace, as opposed to this one that has a very obvious insertion sort of section here. So this part is supposed to be hidden, whereas this one can be appliqued on. And even then, you can insert a ribbon to come through here and have an extra decorative element to your eyelet galloon lace. Galloon lace does also come in a Venice sort of form, so we can use that as well, but I don't think I have any Venice. Oh no, wait. Now that I think about it, I might actually have some Venice galloon. Here's another one. This is Venice. Venice is more of an embroidered lace. It's a little bit nicer, not scratchy. It's made of cotton in this case, but you do find it made of polyester. That does not necessarily mean that it is of low quality if it is made with polyester. You'll find a lot of Venice lace is polyester, but it still has the same general feel and hand of something made of cotton. So it's just that cotton or rayon, for instance, this is rayon. This is also a Venice lace. These take dye a lot easier. Rayon takes dye really, really nicely, and so does nylon. Obviously, so does cotton. So polyester, if you do have a lace like this that is polyester, you're going to have to use a special kind of dye, which RIT and iPoly does also provide. iDye is the brand, and then iDye Poly is specifically for polyester since it has to stain plastics, which polyester is. And then you have RIT Dye More series, and that is also designed for polyester. Okay, so that's going over the trims. We'll get to sift through all of this when we get to that portion of the tutorial. Now, another thing that you're going to need if you are watching this in a VOD sort of format, if you're watching this after the fact, I want you to be able to get 5 safety pins. You're going to need 5 safety pins. I got these at Walgreens, and there's a sewing section at Walgreens, so you're going to need 5 small-ish safety pins. So, what, these are like 1.5 inches. These are going to be your bodkins. A bodkin is something that allows you to pull string or ribbon or elastic in this case through a channel that we'll be making for the full shirring. So in thinking about how this dress is constructed, there are going to be a couple changes to the method of construction, which I hope everybody will be happy for, because frankly, I was looking at these instructions and I'm going, what the? Why? Why do you do this? So I think we went over almost everything. We went through the trims. I did try to find some satin ribbon that was acceptable for this design. The other thing too, the design recommends and is designed this way to have this little cross ribbon kind of faux corset lacing thing going up the center front of the bodice. You can do that. I think this would be acceptable. It's actually a little thinner than what they recommend. They're recommending, I think, a 3/8 inch wide ribbon. This is a 1/4 inch wide. So something a little bit wider than this would be better, but this should still work if you chose to do that design element. So if we're going to be following this pattern exactly, we're probably going to be doing that, but just so that you know, you do have the option of changing up the center if you wanted to have a row of maybe 3 bows, if you wanted to put buttons instead. You have options to change it up. You don't have to be exactly to the sample here. So, that said, we still have the ribbon for the center front, so that's what we're gonna. I also found this one that's kind of fun. It's more of an organza ribbon. My center front contrast fabric is going to be a light yellow, so I'm not sure that this would pop, you know, from a design aspect. Not that I'm really concentrating on that, since I am deciding to use this kind of garish fabric that I found in my stash. I have enough of it. It's kind of cute. I wanted to use it for the longest time just to make something. I thought, well, if I'm doing a demo, I might as well just use that up. So that's what we're using. Anyway, so my color choices are all based on the colors that are available in this print. So as for ribbon, we wanted the, let's see, it does say 3/8 inch wide. Yeah, 2 yards of that. And of course, it also suggests some wide ribbon for the top of the shoulders and a little design feature in the center of the bodice. Now, I'm not sure that I have enough lace. I might to go across the top. I'm not sure I even like that design element. I might do something different anyway, but if you were to do that, we can go over that when we get to that point. Okay, one more thing that you absolutely need to have for this dress is interfacing. Interfacing comes in all different kinds. They do offer a wide variety of non-woven interfacing, which I of course started using as well. Everybody does, until I discovered that I preferred a woven fusible interfacing. So they do recommend 1 1/8 yard of a 20 to 25 inch wide, lightweight fusible interfacing, such as Pellon, which is pretty much the only thing available in Joann's or any fabric stores. It's okay. You can still use it. I'm not going to judge you if you use a non-woven interfacing. It just so happens that that is what's widely available. Make sure that it's a lightweight fusible. And fusible, if you don't have a fusible, if you have something called sew-in interfacing, it just means that there's going to be an extra step, which means you're going to have to attach it separately on each of the pieces with a little running stitch, like a straight stitch going around each piece before they're put together. It literally means you have to sew it in. You have to sew it on the piece instead of ironing it onto the piece and then you can sew it. Again, I like to use Shapeflex or a tricot knit interfacing instead of a non-woven, since it does feel more like paper. Non-woven tends to degrade over time, over many washings. It does shred in the wash, so you kind of want to avoid that. But I am not going to judge you, again, if you use a non-woven. So lightweight fusible, just make sure that it's lightweight, it's fusible, and you have 1 1/8 yard of interfacing. So, with that being said, I think now we're done. I think we're done going over the envelope. We have the instructions. There are a lot of pieces. I think somebody mentioned on the Lolita Sewing Collective that they got this pattern, they opened it and pulled it out, and then they put it right back in because it was too complicated for them. So I'm trying to figure out why it would be complicated, and I think I know why. There's a lot in here. There are so many folded giant pattern sheets in here. So this is the other size. I'm just pulling it out. So this is exactly how it comes. It comes folded like this. These pattern sheets unfold, and there's 4 of them. And then you have all of these pieces that are numbered. And so what does that all even mean? So one thing to keep in mind too is that there are quite a few variations here. You have 2 dresses. One of them has an underskirt with a few different design elements, and rickrack, that's another no-no. Please don't use rickrack. This has a blouse. This has a blouse. They're both different. So you have 2 blouses, 2 dresses, 1 underskirt, and on this one in particular, you have also patterns for the bows that are decorating the dress. So naturally, there's a lot to go through here. But if you're only going to be focusing on one dress, this one, so this is view A, we're not doing the blouse, so really all you need are the pieces just for that dress. So you just have to identify, this is view A, and it tells you blouse, 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 we don't need the blouse. Sleeve, we don't need a sleeve. Bodice, center front, bodice. This is also, I think this is for, yes, this is for your jump skirt. Bodice, center front, bodice, middle front. That's going to be number 8 and 9. 8 and 9 are here. That's what they look like. You have your bodice side front is number 10. Bodice back is number 11. And then you have all of these. They're elastic guides. So I actually cut those out. I didn't even bother like separating them because you don't really need to. I have them all kind of folded over here. So all of your elastic guides can just be cut out in a chunk and left intact because you're just going to be stretching your elastic to measure them each to the necessary length. That's going to go in your shirring. But you can sort of disregard this. You're still going to need to cut out the block of all these elastic guides, but you don't need to cut each one individually. Next, you need your shoulder strap, naturally. Your guide for the shoulder strap ruffle, which I have disagreements with, mainly because I feel after putting a jump skirt like this together so many times, you can change that out. You can omit it altogether. You don't need to have a guide for your ruffle, and I can show you what I mean. So the next thing is your skirt front and back for view A, because the view B has a different skirt. So those are the only pieces that you need. Center, this little piece on the side front, back bodice, skirt, shoulder strap. And the rest are just like little guides for you. So really, once it's broken down, you only have about 5 pieces. 5, let's see, 5, 6, 7. So you have 7 pattern pieces that you need. Out of all of these pattern pieces, you're only going to be using 7 of them. Okay? So don't be intimidated. You just need to break it down to the thing that you're going to be making out of the pattern, identify where they are on these giant pattern sheets, and sort of cut them out. What I ended up doing when I unfurled everything and decided to start cutting things out, I just cut around them. I just like take chunks out. Sometimes the reason I do this is so that I can keep the grading intact. So I have all my pieces here. So something like this. This is the shoulder strap, for instance. This is pattern piece number 17. And the shoulder strap has some variations here. Here are the graded differences. We're going for a size 14, so that's where our line ends. I didn't want to cut it to my size 14 because maybe somebody will want this dress in a size 20 or size 18. So what I ended up doing is I just went ahead and traced it with my tracing paper. And so now I have one cut in size 14, but I still have my original pattern piece intact if I need to use this again for a different size. So we have that one done. I can start putting things aside. We have our bodice side front. This is the side piece, so there is no grading for the side piece. They're all the same for every size in this size range. And that one, oh yeah, I did cut out the bows in case you guys wanted to see how a bow is put together. Even though the bow in this case goes to the B view, you can still choose to mix it up and make the B side or B view bow and apply it somewhere to your view A. Your options are limitless. Hey Sierra, welcome! Glad you could make it too! We're just going over a few things here and trying to break down this seemingly complicated but not so complicated actually pattern. So we have our bodice side front. We have our center front bodice, and I did mark points here where you're supposed to do your little crisscross thing if you choose to do that as a design element. And then our center back bodice actually gets folded in half. It's cut on a center fold, and then it is folded like this when it's put together. So you're going to have a piece like this with little lines, little channels going this way, and that's where we're going to put our elastic through. But when you see the pattern piece, it looks very long, and you have these arrows here that point to a line that says this is going to be placed on a fold, so that actually when you unfurl it, it's a mirrored piece of itself and you have one giant piece. Here's what I meant about the elastic guide. So these are different lengths for the back shirring. So back 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd. So really what it's supposed to do is go like this. So from top to bottom. This is the one that goes around your waist. This was the one that goes around the top around your shoulders. I just kept it intact like this. I didn't want to cut it for one. Also, I wanted to just take my elastic and place it on the line of 14 and just bring it out till 14 and cut it there, because you don't need to have these separated. So keeping this intact is probably a little bit easier. You don't have to cut that out. Again, this is the center front, or no, excuse me, this is that weird side piece, bodice middle front, I suppose. So that gets attached here. The other thing I wanted to mention as well, you have these little triangles. Now, those of you who are familiar with my channel know that I am very salty about people who use these little triangles and cut outward. That is a waste of time, and you don't need to do it. I don't know why grandmothers everywhere were teaching their kids how to sew with cutting out these little painstaking little triangles. These are notches. These are placement markers. So all you have to do is put a little clip on the side, and we're going to show you how to do that when I start cutting out all this fabric. And then you use those as little milestones, for instance, little ways to make sure that it's going to fit in the place that it needs to. So that's going to be a sewing technique as well. This one is saying that it goes to the center front. The center front is this piece. So you have your double and then your two singles here, so you can see how the puzzle piece is starting to fit together. So this is essentially the entire front of the bodice. You have one of these cut out, two of these, and two of these, and so on the other side you're going to have that whole bodice. Again, I traced this one to make sure that I can keep the rest of the grading intact, and we're going for a size 14, so I traced size 14, and I made sure my notches are marked here. So, because we traced this and I don't need it anymore right now, I'm going to fold this somewhat carefully and put it away. I'm starting to pile my... Oh, well, this we will need, yes, the elastic guide. This we don't. This we do. And I'm going to go over the skirt, too, in a minute, because there's something I need to say about the skirt. This we won't need, because I traced this. This we were tracing, so we don't need this anymore either. Uh-oh, lower quality. Alright guys, so which one was this one? Oh, this is a bow, so if we wanted to do a bow element on this, we have that choice. I'm just gonna put it away for now though. Upper knot, is this lower bow? Okay, I'm just gonna cut this out kind of haphazardly. And I know I keep trying to mess with the colors on my camera here. The one downside I have come across with this camera is that the colors always seem a little bit off. And I wonder if there's just anything I can do about it, because there's supposed to be a lot of yellow and red in that color scheme here. Let me see if I set it to default what happens. Anything? Didn't do anything? Well, what about my filters? Are those on? Nope, those are not on. Interesting. Ooh. I mean, you can sort of see it there. That's a little better. That's a little better. That is slightly better. Okay. That's a little... Yeah, it's pinkish. It's At least you can see the magenta now. This is definitely a magenta. So that was bothering me. I'm sorry. Okay. So, when you are cutting out this pattern, since I do have a piece here, you want to make sure that you don't cut on the outside of the line. You want to cut either on the line or just on the inside of the line. This line, once it's added up, can actually throw off the measurement of your final piece. So you want to cut on that line or inside the line. It's not a pretty border. It's just there to outline your piece, and you want to get rid of it. Because if you think about it, a 1/16 of an inch added to 12 is about 3/4. And that's going to add 3/4 of a seam, 3/4 of ease around your piece. You don't want to do that. So you want to try to cut as close to that line as possible. Okay. So this is just a little bow knot thing that we were maybe thinking of doing. So the other thing that I have issues with, I mentioned it just earlier, your guide for a shoulder strap ruffle. I guess I understand why they include this in the pattern, but I personally wouldn't use this. I think it's just an extra step that if you just knew a little bit more about putting in trim, you don't need this. And also, the fact that they advise you to have such a wide Rochelle lace on the shoulder, it's kind of clownish to me. Rochelle lace, first of all, but also it's so big. Usually you don't see anything quite this wide on a shoulder strap in Lolita fashion. So yeah, this dress is not considered Lolita fashion per se. Let's just be clear about that. I have no illusions, I should say illusions, to the fact that this is not Lolita. Okay, this is close enough so that you get the basic idea of the shapes involved in making a jump skirt. What I consider better Lolita are anything in the Otome no Sewing books. So, we're still using this because this is what's available, and Otome no Sewing is in Japanese, and not everybody has the basis foundation for putting together patterns or reading Japanese at all. So, that's why we're doing this. Okay, so we're putting this away. We don't need that right now. The thing about the skirt, which I found really interesting, I'm not really gonna bother using the pattern for the skirt, and you'll never guess why. So, folded, this equals one panel of a 45-inch wide fabric. You are making a rectangle skirt. If you don't know what a rectangle skirt is, what it is you basically take your folded fabric, this fabric for instance, okay, it's open here, the fold is on this side, you measure down, I don't know, 18, 20 inches, however long you want your skirt to be, you cut across this way twice, and that's your skirt. You basically have exactly two rectangles, and you put them together, and that creates your skirt. They're using a rectangle skirt foundation for the pattern here. The only difference that I would caution you about is if you are using a border print. This is why the pattern, which you see here, you have your arrows pointing to this line that says this should be on a center fold. This is the reason that the pattern requires 3.5 yards of fabric. So if you have a border print instead, this is an all over print, so I don't need to necessarily have it on a fold to maintain the integrity of that border print going all the way around the circumference of the hem. Instead, what you would have to do, because most border prints are printed this way, going down the selvage, actually. It's down here on the selvage. So, if you had a border print going down on the selvage, you want to make sure that this is going lengthwise, this way. It's the only reason why they recommend that you have this on a centerfold, so that you can maintain the entire border print going around even to the side seam. That's why. If you do not have a border print, you don't need to worry about this. You can do a rectangle skirt just like normal, probably one of the easiest things anybody can make as a starter Lolita thing, and go from there. So if you are using a border print, let me know and I can walk you through it. But for this pattern, because it's exactly like a rectangle skirt, I'm going to be making a rectangle skirt, which means this is going to make it a lot easier to put together the back and the front. So there is this thing in the instructions that I fundamentally disagree with, which I was going to go over really quick here. So again, you have a lot of pieces here that they have instructions for. The instructions are usually broken down by the piece, like blouse A, dress A, and things like that. So you're going to be looking for the piece that you're working on. Excuse me, I need a drink of water. Whew. Oh good, it's going to be so easy then. It'll still be easy even if you did have a border print, and the reason why I have you get 5 safety pins is kind of partly tied to that. It's the way that they have you do the back. That's what I was gonna go over real quick. So this is for the blouse. Disregard, disregard, we're not making a blouse, so you don't need to look at that. They do have suggestions on the layout, how to cut things so that you use the maximum amount of fabric at your disposal, things like that. So basically the dress is, this is supposed to be unfurled, like unfolded completely, 3.5 yards worth. You would probably have to cut it on your floor, because even my pattern table isn't big enough to handle this, but basically to cut it with the fold here. And yeah, so they have suggestions for your placement, your layout. It's called spreading in a factory. They have some suggestions. They give you a little legend here of what these symbols mean. For instance, this line is your grain line. That's this one, which I copied over. Which way your fabric is going to be going. With an even weave, if you're an all-over print, you can actually do this, or you can do this. Just make sure you don't have it on the diagonal. But an even weave is exactly that. It's the same going this way and the same going this way most of the time. Sometimes you do get an even weave that has sort of some stretch to it, in which case you would check for that first. You would make sure that your grain line is going up and down. But that's what that means. You have your fold line, your center back or center front of the garment. I don't think I have one available right now to show you. Your placement dots. So things like right here. So for view B, for instance, this is actually a universal piece. It goes for view A and B. But these placement dots are specifically for view B. So that's what these mean. You have your notches, your fabric goes this way, that's your grain line. This is also a placement line for view B because it has a ribbon going around it, but we're not doing view B, so we don't need to worry about that. So, yeah, bodice middle front. On this one, you have the grain line on the diagonal, which means it wants you to cut it on the bias. When you cut something on the bias, it makes it a little bit stretchy. It has a little give to it. So that's probably why they have you do this, so that it could be, you know, manipulated a little bit better when you're making your knot for your bow. Then you have your cutting line. If it has lengthening or shortening, it would say that. Your typical seam allowance is 5/8. unless otherwise specified. For instance, on the shoulder strap, I do believe it actually says 3/8 seam allowance. On this bow, for instance, it says right on there 3/8 seam allowance, but otherwise just assume that the seam allowance is 5/8. That's pretty typical for commercial patterns. The seam allowance is already drafted into the pattern, so you don't have to add that yourself. So that makes life a little easier, as opposed to Otome no Sewing, where you do not only have to draft the pattern, but also add the seam allowance. Even on the pattern sheet in Otome no Sewing, once you trace it, it has to be added with a seam allowance, and the seam allowance is typically 1 centimeter, unless otherwise specified. Same here. It gives you some basic sewing directions, but we're going to be going over all of that. I have some notes about how to do things that might make it a little bit easier. Yeah, cutting and marking, so I'm just trying to see here if there's anything else I might need to go over before I get to, oh yes, blouse disregard. We're not doing a blouse. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and lay it on me in the chat, and I will try to address them as soon as I see them. So, here is the disagreement that I have. They tell you to put the shirred back bodice with the elastic already in it together with the front before the skirt is sewn on to the back. That makes it really difficult, especially when you already have elastic in it. You're gonna have to stretch that thing and somehow make sure that it stays. So I'm gonna go over a method of how to put together the back bodice with the skirt, the front bodice with the skirt. You can even sew it up the side, and then you bring the elastic through. We're basically going to be taking 5 of these safety pins. We're going to prepare our back bodice ahead of time with the channels, the casings, if you will. The casings are these little narrow places, narrow, what do I want to say, like crevices? I don't know. What's I'm trying to think of the right word. Not vacuum. Narrow places. Empty places where we're going to be putting in our elastic here. We are going to put in our casings once it's all, you know, folded and stuff. And then we're going to preload each of the casings with a bobbin that has elastic. We're going to make sure that it stops right at the end so that the bobbins, the safety pins in this case, are going to be floating just inside in the middle somewhere with their ends sort of sticking out. So those are going to stay in there. We put the side seam together, and then we pull the elastic all the way through so that it's elasticated in that case. So the skirt would already be attached before you put elastic in it, and that's going to make everybody's life so much easier. I don't know why they tell you to do this. Why can't they just recommend something like this? Anyway, I'm salty. I'm sorry. The other problem I have are the shoulder straps. In this pattern, they tell you to sew the shoulder straps to the back. Most times, in official dresses, brand dresses, off-brand dresses, even in Otome no Sewing, they have you put in a buttonhole or 2 in your shoulder strap. And then you would sew a button on the back bodice somewhere so that you can have it adjustable, you can undo it, or whatever. But instead, in this pattern, for whatever reason, simplicity, you decided that we have to sew it onto the back. We're not going to do that. You can if you want to. It's fine if you want to do it that way. If you don't want to do a buttonhole, if it's too much of a pain, and I understand if you don't have like a computerized machine like some of us do, it's a little harder to do a buttonhole. But that is my recommendation, is to do a buttonhole and sew on a button in the place where they say to sew it instead. That's all I gotta say about that. So the entire bodice on the front is interfaced, and then it is also lined, so we're just going to be using the same fabric for the lining, considering this piece does not have a facing. a lot of the time you would have a facing piece and then a lining separate piece on the inside. But this does not have that. The lining or the facing would also be interfaced instead of the shell of the piece. Instead, they have you interface the shell itself and lined with the same fabric. So we're just gonna do it that way. That's okay. That's acceptable. We're gonna do this. Okay. So at this point, let me know if you have any questions. Oh, let's see, because I may have missed something while I was talking here. So let's see what was the question. Couple of questions. Okay, so sorry. I'm so sorry. How do you mark the dots on dark fabric? And is there a dart in the bodice in the pattern? There is no dart in the pattern. What you saw was probably a placement line for view B, and I can show that to you because I just had it and I think I know what you're talking about. Don't be scared. I know it's a little bit confusing here. You might have been looking at this part right here. This is a placement line for view B because there's a ribbon that sort of goes around like an Ampere waistline. That's what that's for. And I can go over how to do dots on dark fabric. If you have something called an awl, which I should, somewhere, probably in my toolbox, we're gonna poke a little hole in our pattern, and then you can take a tailor's chalk, if you have a tailor's chalk. So if you have a dark fabric, I have a broken piece of tailor's chalk, but it still works. We're just gonna mark it with the tailor's chalk. Gold Star Tool has a box of tailor's chalk you can get for a pretty decent price, or you can look on eBay for supplies like that too. So let's see. Still find music distracting, probably because I'm old. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Let's see. That was a question that I struggled with every time I had darts. When I had sewing classes, they told me to grab a needle and thread and pass it through the point that you need to mark. You just have to leave a long thread so you can knot both sides, the two fabrics, if you're cutting in the double when you separate them. Yeah, I mean, thread tracing is a thing that's done in tailoring, for instance, and in other, in dressmaking in general, or couture. And that is a method that you could use, but I just mark the fabric with some chalk. I make sure I poke a hole through that pattern. Okay, so what I might end up doing here is I'm gonna mute the music for you guys. So I just realized I'm gonna need to upload this without music or something. Luckily it is DMRC. Oh yes, Shiny, you're welcome. Okay. So I think now what we have to do is get started on cutting out our fabric. I have a whole bunch of choices here for ribbons and whatnot, but I haven't quite narrowed it down to something that I like. I might actually have to go out and just buy something that's a little bit better for this print that I chose to use. This is what I would call a Miss Frizzle dress. This is not necessarily a Lolita appropriate print, but it is something I happen to have in my stash. I happen to have enough of it, and it's perfect for a demo because it's basically a quilting cotton, even weave, broadcloth sort of thing. So it works, it's fine. This is fine. And it's bright so you can see it too, so that helps a lot. Alright, I'm just going to stick all of this in my new envelope. I usually create a larger envelope for my pieces, as you can see, a modified pattern envelope here. Haven't quite decided on what to do about the center of the design, but we'll get to that. I did want to do something like, because if you notice on the pattern itself, it's got like a little section. It has your center front and like a little strip that's on the side, and then your side bodice, side front bodice. So I thought it'd be an interesting contrast to have that little strip in this magenta that happens to match Strawberry Shortcake's hair. So this works out. I think this is fine. I said it's fine. I am a silly person. Okay. So, it's accordion folded too, so that it should be able to unfurl pretty easily. This way. This is my contrast fabric. It's going to be the center. My L square ruler. Okay. Welcome everybody. Okay. Can I find my nail on the wall? There it is. Okay. Little reminder, guys, this is a free tutorial, so if you find it in your hearts to donate to my channel, please do so. I'm trying to raise enough money so I can get Clo 3D and provide you guys with some easily available patterns drafted straight from Otome no Sewing, and perhaps some originals, but also graded to different sizes. So the donation button is there, Minty can walk you through it, and I need to get started on cutting stuff out. So I'm going to just do a rectangle skirt, because that's pretty much what they're asking you to do. Okay, so for the back bodice, we have it placed here. Let's see. We have our shoulder strap, our center front bodice, which is going to be in the yellow, so I don't need to do that. Then our side front bodice, which in this case, yeah, we do need to go up and down. Am I going the wrong way? I sure am, because the fold is over here. Make sure you're using fabric scissors, guys. Don't use the same scissors that you cut the pattern out with. Your scissors will thank you later. Let's see. Oh yeah. So, sometimes I use push pins on my table. Sometimes I use pattern weights. Thank you, Minty. Okay. So, I mean, there is some debate on what an appropriate Lolita fabric should be. This would not be considered one of them. This is a licensed cartoon fabric, not necessarily good for Lolita. A lot of classic Lolita, you see florals. You try to avoid garish colors, although I'm looking at Metamorphose that they have like super garish colors sometimes, so that's not really a good criteria either. Sometimes you do have garish colors. Sometimes even the big brands come out with garish colors, like super bright neon pinks and greens and things like that. Almost anything can be used for a Lolita dress. You just have to have a good eye for the design of the final garment. So, probably a 1930s floral, 1930s style floral print is not necessarily something that would be aesthetically pleasing. Maybe larger floral prints, for instance. Lots of times you'll get cute prints. Oh, let's see. Might have ordered 4 new pairs of fabric scissors on Friday. Oh, well, good. Fabric scissors, like good ones, that's a good buy. Let's see. You want to avoid satin. Please don't use costume satin. Like Rochelle lace also is not necessarily recommended. Rick-rack, basically anything you can find as far as trims are concerned at Joann's or Hobby Lobby. But the prints themselves also depends on your style and your preference. Cottons, Sometimes you can find a cotton poly blend that works well. Cotton satines have a satin weave but are made of cotton, so they have the same feel with a slight luster to it, but very, very slight, very subtle. You kind of want to go for a classic Victorian look. Or 18th century. Okay, so before I cut away, or I pull this away, I want to make sure that my notches here, remember I have 2 notches on the side front? We're going to snip those just inside of the seam allowance. Remember, the seam allowance is 5/8. That actually gives you quite a bit of room to work with. There's another notch here on the side. So you do not need to cut out little triangles. Look how fast that was. How long would it take me to cut out those little triangles? Probably forever. So that's our first piece here. I'm going to set this over there. That'll work. Okay, so this one, we do have that same notch. So the notch that we just cut on that side front piece meets up here. Remember, this is folded in the end product. So these notches should match each other when this is folded. So I'm just going to nip these a little bit like that. And I'm also going to go ahead and snip here, and here, and here, and here. Those were my placements for casings. And then we also have another casing that's supposed to go right above here. So I will get to that one eventually. But we have our notches for our side front piece to match together, and then I marked the placement for casings, which we're going to fold and iron to mark, so you don't have to draw lines across the fabric. Oh, you're welcome. If you do have more questions about that, if I didn't explain it well enough, just let me know. Okay, and we have that one. So here is our back bodice piece. So see, once this unfolds like this, can I though? There we go. So the finished edge on the top is going to be the fold, and then you're going to have the skirt attached down here with little lines going this way for our casings. One more thing, however, that I'm deciding to do, because I think sewing the shoulder strap onto the back side of this piece is just an awful idea. And apparently they're supposed to be sewn right in the center here. So this is the placement where it's supposed to be sewn. I am instead going to sew on a couple buttons and put buttonholes on the shoulder strap. So I'm just going to mark it kind of gently. Let me get that awl now. So an awl, if you guys don't know, is something that a lot of leather workers use. It's a pointy metal thing. I'm going to poke a hole right in here. It's okay to hurt your pattern a little bit if you need to. Okay. So you could use chalk, which I have, or you could use a fabric marker that's water soluble. You can get a 4-pack of these on eBay for $1.99 or something ridiculous like that. I'm just going to go ahead and mark right there, because I'm imagining that this is actually the width of the entire strap. So we don't want to have our buttons the width of the strap if our buttonholes are going to be just slightly inward. So I'm just marking there, and we're going to adjust our placement of the button once we have our buttonholes placed on the shoulder strap itself. You could even do a couple rows of buttonholes on the shoulder strap if you wanted it to have more adjustability. So it doesn't have to be sewn in and fixed into place. You can have that option, and I do see that actually a lot in brand name Lolita. You'll have like a couple buttonholes stacked on each other if the person who bought the dress needs an adjustment and has to change where the button is placed. So that is our back. Probably need to do the same thing on the other side. That would help. My cat is crying. Poor thing. He is... Don't let him get into your head, though, because he is so spoiled. Everyone here who's a regular can attest to it. Oh, this cat. Okay, so we have our little guideline placement. We'll see where it lands when we get to that point. So we have our back, we have our side. We need to do our center front and our little strip, which is just the one size. There's no grading on this guy. Let's put these together and set that over here. Kind of fold it in like this. Okay. You need 2 of these. So I happen to have these strips left over from God knows what project. I think I made an underskirt with this stuff and it did not turn out well. This was a few years ago. But it's just the right amount to make these side strips. I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut this out, making sure it's going up and down with the... Oh, I am going to have a couple more pieces cut out of this, but I can also cut out like regular fabric. Since the lining is not going to be shown, we just need something to stabilize the interior. So, main thing is, make sure you have all your pieces cut out before you start putting anything together. I have heard and known some people that cut things out a couple things at a time and then realize that there's a certain step that they missed that required something else to be cut out, which they did not do. So just to have everything all cut out and prepared is best practice. You have to have an iron. Make friends with your iron if you haven't yet. Ironing and sewing go hand in hand. Okay, here's our notches. 1 snip, 2 snip. Up here and 1 down here. And we are disregarding placement for everything else, because that's for the other view. So here we have our middle, what is it? The middle front, bodice middle front pieces. Okay, there we go. We're just gonna start stacking everything. And while I'm here, this skirt is pretty long. I want to say it's pretty long. So here's another little tip. I'm pretty sure that it'll happen with this one. When you have an even weave cotton fabric like this, sometimes you just need to find a straight line. And with any luck, you should be able to do that by ripping it like this. It will always tear on the grain. It might get a little bit lettuce leafed, but you'll find that once it's blocked or ironed and fixed, it's actually perfectly straight. And if you're making strips and strips of ruffle, for instance, you will find that each segment that you've measured and pulled away, that you've torn that way, is always going to be consistent, because it will always tear on the right place. So, starting there, how long do they say this needs to be? I'm just gonna measure the width of this guy. Let me see, where is my measuring tape? I had it right here. I did though. But I did though. I think I was just crazy and cleaning and putting everything away. And I must have thrown everything in my toolbox. So it says, ooh, it's really long. So this skirt is pretty long for Lolita. Which is not necessarily a bad thing. I actually like them long like that. So it's about 23 inches. You can always shorten it if you don't like it that long, if you wanted it shorter. So 23 inches. What did I just do? Did I just put away my measuring tape? Yes. Okay. So here, now we're going to cut 2 panels out of this fabric. This is going to be our skirt. At the top, measuring 23. 23 is right here. I'm going to mark that with my... Oh, it happens to be right on something that's like aqua colored. That is... Okay. So, we'll do another panel. So we're cutting 2 panels across this way. And actually, I'm going to be ripping it. And it's going to be completely even with the other. Here, 23. So we have here. And this one here. Now, of course, again, you wouldn't be doing this if you have a border print. Or we don't have a border print. A rectangle skirt. And hey, we have this much left over. So if I wanted to make a head bow or something, or some sort of accessory like a little bag, I have enough to do probably both of those things. There's my remnant. And so now we have 2 really long skirt panels that are just going to get sewn together on the sides. Like so. Okay, so we're starting to have all the pieces in order. We have our skirt, our side bodice, back bodice, middle front. Front. I guess there's really no other way to describe it. More remnant, so probably more material to make a head bow out of, if we so chose. There's also this. So one more thing I kind of wanted to add too, that the reason why certain things might look complicated is not necessarily the pattern itself, but it's in the finishing and embellishments. So you see, if you break down the pattern itself and you see like the basic shapes, it's not too complicated. But if you're looking at all the little elements of decoration, all the lace that you have going this way and around the shoulder, and the ribbon here and the ribbon on the front, and lace on these seams over here, lace going around the bottom hem. There's gonna be a lot of detail there, and it's gonna look like there's a lot. Uh-oh, I have a little issue. Oh, okay. He's fine. Okay. My computer was giving me an error message and I got worried for a second. Alright. So we have to do... Oh, we have to do our shoulder strap. Hey! I mean, if we wanted to, I suppose we could do it out of the contrast, but we'll go ahead and do it out of that original shell fabric. So the front of the bodice is actually a cut 1. We only need one of these. We might end up making the bodice lining out of this stuff, just because a lot of it was taken up by the what's it called? The skirt. There it is. That's the word. So, yeah. So I will need to cut 2 of these. Cut 1 of your shell, cut 1 of lining if you're using a different material for lining, but we're just going to go ahead and cut 1 of this. Or 2 of these, sorry. Two of them. Okay. If you don't have pattern weights, don't worry. Most people use pins. You pin your pattern to the fabric. It's actually how I learned. We did not have fancy pattern weights when I was growing up and my mom was teaching me how to sew, so we pinned everything. Also, make sure that you iron your pattern. It is so much easier to work with when you iron your pattern. Yes, you can iron your pattern. Paper can be ironed, guys. Okay. And make sure you transfer those notches. So, I am still deciding whether or not to do that crisscross thing. I suppose I could. Might as well go ahead and do that now. So we're only going to be doing that on one of these. Pull that aside. So, we're going to do some pokey holes on each of those placements. You can use, again, a tailor's chalk, or if you have one, a water-soluble marker. They do sell those at Joann's and at Hobby Lobby. In fact, I think they come in a pack. There's like a purple one and a blue one. I think the purple one is air-soluble. So these are just our placements for the little crisscross ribbons. We'll just go ahead and put that in so you can see this process again. Perfect. Darken these a little bit. Yeah, you can spray some water on these marks and they'll go right away. Okay, that's good. So now we have our ribbon placement there. One is going to be a lining, because I guess we're cutting out our lining out of the yellow, which is fine. And some extra fabric goes there. Pattern. Don't need this anymore for now. Okay, and then the last thing, which I am going to be making out of original shell of the fabric. This shoulders 4. This needs to be cut 4. So the shoulder strap. So on my fabric, and a lot of the time you will find this, when you're pulling it from the selvage here and then the fold here, you might get a little bit of stretch. Not so much going up and down, but side to side, sometimes you do get that stretch. So I know it says that the grain line, I guess it is. So the grain line marking here looks like a 1. It's actually arrows pointing this way and this way. It means that up and down follows that arrow. So this is supposed to go this way. I'm not exactly sure why it wants the... If it has any stretch to it, if it wants the stretch to go this way, maybe because of shoulder strap comfort, adjustability, that sort of thing. We're just gonna do the way it says in the pattern. That's fine. Grain line. This way. So we're just gonna cut this out twice. With it double folded. So if it's folded, we're cutting out 2, and they're gonna be mirror images of each other. Okay. Okay. So you do have placement marks here as well. For instance, you have this little dot right here. It's like a tiny little circle in the middle of the pattern. It's for, in the original piece, it has little ribbon bows that sit on top of the shoulder strap. So that's the placement marking for that. Down here is the placement marking for the front bodice. And then over here is the travesty that is sewing across the back bodice placement marks. So I have so many feelings about doing it that way. But whatever. Sometimes I like to keep these little strips because if you are walking away from a project, these are handy to have so that you can roll up all your pieces from your project and then bundle them. Hello! Next, oh my gosh, it's an axolotl. Can I say axolotl? I don't know how to say your first part, the first part of your name. I'm so sorry. But hello and welcome. Oh, it would be super cute with a strawberry bag. That's for sure. That is for sure. Hello, hello. Okay, so this is 1. So we're gonna do that there. I'm gonna cut 1 more. I'm still gonna have plenty to make an accessory, perhaps. I'm just gonna make sure this pattern piece goes right up against my cut edge from the previous one to minimize my waste. Cut this way. Okay. I got a lot of stuff on my table right now. Just make sure we got it nice. It's pretty good. Okay. Little bits we can throw away. Those are not very useful. Alright, so now we have our 4 cut pieces of shoulder strap. I just realized too that we are still going to need our pieces of pattern for the front of the bodice and the shoulder strap, because we're going to need to cut out interfacing as well. Whew, it's a lot of cutting. But get it all done now, and that way you don't have to worry about it later. Okay, there are a few things that I think I just need to put away here. There is so much stuff on my table. I was going through just a bunch of boxes, trying to find trims appropriate for this dress. And somewhat successful, although I swear I thought I had a 3/8 inch magenta colored satin ribbon. Apparently I don't. I might have used it all. So, I'm gonna try to move some of this stuff over. Yeah, all the ribbon. Okay. So the last few things we have to cut out are the lining, which we're gonna have to use this yellow stuff since we don't necessarily have enough of the shell. Also, I did want to mention as well that this needs to be pre-washed. If you use anything with cotton, like a cotton quilting fabric or whatever, pre-wash your fabric and then iron it again, because it will shrink if you try to wash it after you make it. And that's going to be a bad time. So, we did that one. Oh, wait. That's right. I folded it up all nice and neat over here. Got the lining for the center. We need these. We need 2 of those. We don't need the one for the back. We do need the one for the side. Eventually, there's going to be a little trick I'm going to teach you too about how to put in the lining. We'll see if I can put my money where my mouth is. Okay, so I think we have other relevant pieces. Yeah, it's really literally just the front bodice pieces that we need lining for. We have the center one, and now we just need side. And this guy. Not bad. Let's see. Another straight piece. Try to minimize our waste. Don't forget your notches. Because you still have to put these together. These are going to help you when you do that, especially on curves. So, now we have our lining. And the side middle, or whatever, bodice middle. Okay. And our notches. There. Now we have all our main pieces cut out. We can put away. Can't put away. We can't put this away. We need. Did I do that already? Must have done that already. We need shoulder strap. All the pieces for this, the front bits. Front bits. Including the one that I stuck in here. I know I did. Right here. Okay, so these are the only pieces that we need for interfacing. 1, 2, 3, and 4 pieces. So this fabric is done for now, so I can fold this up. And you guys, I am going to take a quick break. My throat is dry. So if I can have 5 minutes intermission, we'll be back in 5 minutes. Alright guys, we're going to be coming back now. I'm going to go over the interfacing. We're done with the yellow. Just kind of neatly fold it again in here. Remember guys, if you feel so inclined, you can donate to the channel. I am doing a fundraiser for Clothe3D. That would help tremendously towards my goal. If you find any of this information useful at all, you can show your appreciation that way. Now, where is my interfacing? I know I have it. Ah, right here. Okay. Oh, good. I'm so glad. And again, if you have any questions, if you want me to slow down, you just let me know, and I will do that for you. I'll go over anything you need me to. So the two different types of interfacing that I personally choose to use are woven, fusible cotton interfacing. This is called Shapeflex. Yes, it is a Pellon brand interfacing, but it's way better than their non-woven stuff. So if you can find this at Joann's and Hobby Lobby. I think they even, actually, I got this in bulk from Walmart.com. They actually sent me a 10-yard bolt of 25-inch Shapeflex. And then the other one is, this is not my favorite. There are other types of tricot knit fusible interfacing. This is a tricot, which means it doesn't fray when you cut it. So a tricot chiffon, for instance, which I made petticoats out of, when you cut it, it doesn't fray. You don't have to finish the edge. It's just the nature of the way that it's knitted. A tricot knit chiffon is a lot lighter weight. This particular brand, this kind, is, I think it's sheer knit. I think there's another one called easy knit that might be a little bit better. I just happened to get this and I got a big bolt of it. I've been using this for a lot of lighter weight stuff. For satin, for instance, it makes satin less inclined to fray. So that's the other kind of interfacing. We are going to be using our Shapeflex here. And it's an all-purpose. It doesn't say if it's lightweight or not. Hello, I just heard a ringy-dingy. Oh, a friend of mine on Facebook has liked the stream. How nice. We're going to be using our Shapeflex to interface our shell bodice piece. When I say shell, that's the outer facing material on the dress, and then we have the lining. Usually, you have a facing, which is a small, like, echo of the front of the piece. And that part is interfaced and then sewn across the top to finish that top edge. Instead, for this pattern, they just have it lined with a same fabric, so another broadcloth or even weave, cotton fabric, whatever, and then it's just finished that way, and it's the shell itself that is interfaced. So we're going to be doing it the way that the pattern says, and I'm going to be cutting out just those 4 pieces for the interfacing. And then we can get started on fusing. Again, if you have a sew-in interfacing, you're going to have to sew it around these pieces, and you won't have the benefit of a fusing, but it's still doable. Sew-in is what they had before we had adhesives that you could just iron on. So this piece is a single piece. This is the very center front. A lot of the time you might have this folded. Like you might have a piece like this and it says to cut on fold. You might see that a lot, but in this case it's already just one piece and we're just going to be cutting it out this way. So this does not have any stretch to it, so it can go this way or this way. So we have options in our placement here. Makes it a little easier. Yeah, this is the cutting out part. This is the part that I think is the hardest. Why is that suddenly held? Weird, my pretzel rocks was just suddenly held by the auto mod? Okay. Oh, probably because it's not actually playing the music. Because I'm hearing the music so that my headphones don't go to sleep. But I turned it off for you guys. So for the interfacing, because it just gets fused on directly to the fabric, we don't need to add the notches. You might want to redo the notches. You'll find them. You'll see them if it's fused and like the notch itself has fused closed. You'll still be able to find it and just re-snip those. Okay. So that is that piece. We only need to cut 2 of the shoulder strap interfacing. So that's gonna look like, let's see, we're gonna have to unfold this. Over there. And they should be mirror images of each other. I'm gonna have to buy more of this stuff. Shapeflex is good. It's one of the few... I can't right now. my sister is calling me. Question! Do we need to mark the channels on the back shirring part? Yes, and I will show you how I do that. And it's actually a trick that I learned from the factory where Baby the Starshine Bright dresses are made. Amazingly. I was very fortunate to attend a sponsored ball. I can't right now. uh, more like a fashion show. I was attending a fashion show. I was I was actually going as a model of all things for an independent designer. And one of the videos that they showed was a little like documentary style video on the making of a collection, I think. And it was fascinating because I got to see their methods in the factory in Japan. Tokyo Young, I think they're called, is the factory. Some of their stuff, I'm not going to lie to you, some of their stuff is made in China. It depends on the collection that they're putting out, but a lot of their higher end things are made in Japan. So that's where I saw this little method of ironing your marks. So instead of marking with a pen or a marker or a tailor's chalk or anything like that, what they do is they'll fold it like this and they'll press it. And then they'll fold it again like this and they'll press it. And then you're going to end up with lines that are just pressed, creased into the fabric, going straight across, perfectly straight. And then that's the line that they end up following for those channels. It's brilliant, I think. So I've adopted that ever since I watched that video. I've watched it quite a few times, actually, and it is just so informative. It's also fun to see the whole process that they go through from Mama-sama, the head designer, going through her process of designing a dress, and then it's taken, she makes the sample and gives the sample and the pattern to the factory. They have a whole room full of lace on bobbins, like lace bobbins, you know, the cards, lace cards. And she'll pick what she wants to go into it, and then she'll send the entire thing to a factory, and then they break it down and they recreate the pattern and make it fit, and then they develop it for a production line. It's wonderful to watch. And apparently the ladies that work in that factory are just always so happy to work on Lolita. Apparently they were a failing factory before Baby the Starshine Bright employed them to make their exclusive stuff. So they gave them business. Of course, This was now quite a few years ago. That documentary is kind of old, now that I think about it. I feel like it came out in 2007? Don't quote me on that. Still, it was a nice story. Okay. Have our shoulder straps. And what did I do? Right here. This guy. Don't iron this. Just don't do it. Tempting as though it is. It's okay. If it's thrown off a little bit, you can trim it. It's not the end of the world. Hello. Aw. Sophie Acre has liked the stream. Why, thank you. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have left? We have our middle bodice pieces. Whatever those are called. The little strips. Do I have... Don't know if I have big enough pieces here. This one. Nope. So that's not gonna work. I'm holding off cutting the interfacing because I still have the pattern pinned to the fabric. Oh, well, I see. Are you still, like, trying to decide if you want to cut it out? I'm really getting to the end of this. Come back. Come back. Let's see. I could just do it this way. Doesn't even need to be that wide. That's good. Oh, you're seeing how I mark the channels. Oh, okay. We'll get to that. I'm going to be fusing the interfacing to these front pieces, and I can do the channel marking at the same time, so you can sort of see what I'm talking about. Yeah, the casings. I tried many different things before I came across that video and saw how they did it in Japan, and my world changed. Suddenly, it became so much easier. Okay. Oh my! I just heard the thing! What? Thank you so much, Minty. Oh, did you see? Did you see the new things? I have new things. I got some new little animations. I'm so happy with them. I think they're cute. All right. Okay. Let's get on with it. All this cutting. It's never been my favorite part. But once it's done, and then you can, like, get on with the fun stuff, you know? Alrighty. So I'm feeling already that this is gonna probably be a two-parter. All the cutting, it always takes so much time. I don't want that to discourage you, though, but there is some time to be invested. Okay, so here we have our front side. We have our front middle, which goes this way. We have our center singular right here. And then our lining pieces are here. We also need to interface the front part of your shoulder strap. So the shoulder strap goes like this. So this is going to follow the curvature of your top bodice here, so that it kind of looks like it's going outward. See what I mean? And then it kind of goes in a little bit on the back. Okay. So for the shoulder strap, however, we want to make sure that we have our opposites. So we're going to have our front pieces. We're going to pull off our fronts, set those aside. These are going to be our backs, and they'll be set there. So these are the ones that we apply an interfacing to. So let's get my iron ready. Wake up, iron! Wake up! We need you! Okay, so let's just make sure we have our orientation correct. We know this goes this way. Yes, and then this goes this way. Good. Now these are mirror images of each other, so even if we... And they don't have a right side or a wrong side, so even if I did put the interfacing on this side, so long as it's the opposite of the other one, it could still be flipped over and used. Just gotta make sure our double marks are facing towards the middle here, because these are the double marks that they're supposed to match to. It's gonna be kind of fun. I haven't decided what kind of trim to put in here yet, but you can definitely see it. That was my goal. Okay. So because I folded this when I cut it, my adhesive is on mirror images of each other. Like this. There is a slight diagonal down here for the middle part. This one I have my marks on. It is like symmetrical, so I'm not too worried about that one either. However, I do want my marks. This does have a wrong side and a right side. The marks are on the right side because it's supposed to have the ribbon on that side. We just need to make sure that our adhesive is facing down. I can't tell you how many students I've had who didn't understand why it wasn't sticking, and suddenly the plate on their iron was getting all messed up. So the adhesive side down is the bubbly side. It's the little textured side. Okay, I think fine. The other benefit to this, oh, hello, and thank you. Oh, nerdy burb, you have subscribed. Thank you so much. Isn't that cute? I love the little frame. Thank you so much for that. You can't understand. Maybe you do. I can't tell you though how much that helps me a lot. I dedicate a lot of my time to these tutorials and to streaming and just chatting with you guys and showing you stuff, and the last time I got a little payout from it. I'm like, I can afford my rent. Thank you. I literally was like on the verge of tears. It was the best feeling in the world. And I love teaching, so this is great. I like that you kept the zombie for Facebook. Yeah. I felt that was appropriate. Aw, you guys are awesome. Yeah, you know what? And I do want to mention too that if you have Amazon Prime, you have Twitch Prime. And you get to use your free subscription to any channel of your choice once per month for free. So if you have Twitch Prime, you can subscribe for free. And that helps me out too. This is interesting. I have never done the interfacing on the shell of the fabric before, but this is what it says in the instructions. I'll be honest with you, the instructions are a little bit whack. I mean, it is still the step-by-step if you just like look at the diagrams and then look over to what it's referring to. I mean, it's pretty basic. But then they have those weird suggestions like putting in the elastic before attaching the skirt and like, why? So this is another one of those weird things, but I think I understand why they're doing this. It should have a nice body to it. Like a firmness. Okay, so these are fused. We're gonna do these side pieces now. And then I think I can finally put away this pattern. Just gonna straighten that up a little bit. Don't like those creases. Remember, you do it on the back side. So again, if you're doing the sew-in kind, this is the point where you would basically go just inside the seam allowance. Remember, the seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch. So you're going to go less than that all the way around and stitch your interfacing onto the pattern piece before it gets put together. So that's the only difference with sew-in and fusible. Fusible is just fusing to the entire thing. The sew-in is just going to be sewn around the sides. Okay. So my bad habit to lift it up right away after I fused it is something you shouldn't do because it has the potential of still being soft and might separate your interfacing. So letting it cool after fusing is highly recommended and something that I really need to practice a little bit more. I get impatient. That's for sure. But sometimes you cannot rush things. Having a little patience and doing the extra thing is going to help you and save you a headache in the long run. See what I mean? Did I just tell you? Um, did I mention the other benefit of using the cotton woven shape flex is that you can have it on the cotton setting and it won't melt? That's a thing. So don't worry, you guys. If you can't stay for the whole thing today, it's going to be available in the archive video. So under my videos, under recent broadcasts, you're going to see this, and you can watch it after it's already been completed. So if you have to go, I completely understand, and I super appreciate you coming here and checking it out and watching until you couldn't. So again, if you have any questions, you can always contact me on the Discord group. I am there always. So do let me know if I need to explain something one more time. I'm gonna get to the channels. Don't worry. I haven't forgotten. Did I? I didn't. Oh. One last thing. I gotta do the shoulder straps. Oh, thank you, thank you. Sharon, thanks so much. Is the fusing to the lining or shell? I missed it. Oh, don't worry about that. Yes, it is on the shell. I know, strange as it may be, it is on the shell fabric. As per the instructions. I looked at it 3 times. I'm like, really? Really? Okay. Okay. So that's the back part. Now, here we have our back bodice that's going to be shirred. So I did make sure that I marked the fold. There should be this way. Okay. It's a good thing I have an all over print because that makes it a lot easier to not have to worry about orienting the pattern in any kind of direction. Hello, Snow Priestess. Hello. Yeah, I know. Isn't that odd, Sierra? I'll even find it for you. It's just to make sure that I'm not crazy. Uh, yeah, so these instructions. Like if I just chose to do this on my own, I would draft a facing for this for one and do it completely differently. But anyway, yeah. It says dress A is here. Apply interfacing to one bodice center front. Remaining bodice center front will be used as the facing. That's the lining part. Cut 10 pieces of the ribbon. Oh, that's applying it to blah, 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 blah. Apply interfacing to bodice middle front. Apply interfacing to pin bodice side front. Apply interfacing to shoulder straps. That one at least makes sense. It's just like very strange decisions here. I don't think Andrea Shu knew really what the heck she was doing, but it's close enough. Alright. So we have our giant piece. Now the other thing that I would do too is I would not make it folded like this. Actually, the pleated skirt recommended or had it drafted this way in that you basically had a quarter of it and then like this the draft, and then this is a fold, and this is the fold. So you have one giant piece like this as the back that's then folded like this, and then it gets all scrunched up, and this is the back shirring. I like to put a separate piece together, so instead of the fold here, because sometimes you might want to have, I don't know, like a little piece of chiffon, like folded chiffon ruffle right around here, or lace, or whatever. And you need that seam in order to apply that kind of element. So this is fine for a quick finish. It's fine. In any case, then sometimes I like to do like a separate piece so I have a lighter lining material instead of 2 times folded or just a folded piece of quilting fabric for both sides. It's just easier and gathers better that way. But this is what we're doing now. So we're going to show you how to do the casings. Now let me just make sure. Okay. So when you are putting this together, like when you start to do your channels across here, on the top and on the bottom, you're going to be following this fold at about 3/8 of an inch right around here. So you're just going to follow the fold and use that as your guideline to sew a 3/8 inch line below that. That's your first casing right on the top. So there's no marking for it. The second one, let me just make sure here. So the second one of these is a notch. Okay. So the higher one is the casing. So this lower piece right here, this is your placement notch. That's not a casing placement. Here is your notch. I mean your casing placement. So you're going to take these 2 upper notched places and you're going to pinch them. And you get a perfectly straight line. Keep that together. You know, doesn't have to be perfect. And you're going to iron this. You see? That's your new guideline for casing. You could probably use the one at the bottom to make the bottom bit, but you're going to follow this line. You're going to sew exactly on that line. And then you're going to sew 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter below it. So the second one is the same. I'm going to do the next one too. Does not have to be perfect. So don't be hard on yourself if it doesn't come out like exactly aligned. So long as it's straight enough across to get that casing in, you're going to be fine. So this is super creased. You can soften that a little, but you're still going to be able to see that line to follow when you're working on your machine. Close enough. So can you see that okay? Let me get a close up here so you can sort of see what I'm talking about. So now you can really see that crease, right? Actually, let me go ahead and check really quick. Because when I'm doing the Otomino sewing books, this line usually represents the top of the casing. So it's really easy to just follow. I don't know if it's actually the same. I'm just assuming, and that's wrong because assuming makes an ass of you and me. Sorry, that just came out. my inner dad, and I'm not even male. Dad jokes everywhere. Okay. So, follow back, bonus long fold line, having wrong sides together, blah blah blah. Base sides are to form. To form casings. Stitch 3/8, 1 centimeter from upper edge. Yes, I said this. And 1 inch from lower edge of bodice. Oh, okay. So you're going to do the bottom of the bodice at 1 inch. That makes sense. Okay. So then the casing, so in this case, it is the opposite. Good, 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 good. So everything is fine. Oh, time to go, Minty. Bye, Minty. I love you. Okay, so we have, let me just go ahead and mark our fold as well. Okay, so according to the instructions, this line is the bottom of the casing. So you're going to be following this, and the needle is going to be above at 1 centimeter, or 3/8 of an inch. Here, you're following the fold, and it's going to be below 3/8 of an inch. But each of these lines, this is the bottom of the casing. So you follow this line, and 3/8 of a centimeter, 3/8 of an inch above this, or 1 centimeter, is going to be your casing placement. So on the line and above it. On your line and above it. And then over here, you have a 1 inch difference. So 1 inch is going to look like something like this. Now, on the 1 inch, I mean, I could just make a decision, but I want to make sure that you guys are instructed okay. Not just like by my whimsy. Yeah, okay. So 1 inch is one casing line and then 1 centimeter above that. So the lines are the placement at the bottom, and then a centimeter above that is the top of the casing. Cool. I hope that answers your question. See it this way. All right, so we have, I think, everything is pretty much prepared for construction at this point. Sure, we got we got our 2 skirt panels, our bodice back, our interfaced shoulder straps, and then the non-interface shoulder straps that's going to be applied to the back of them. We have our side bodice pieces, our middle bodice pieces in a contrasting color, and yet another contrasting color for the center front bodice. We have our lining pieces that match the front bodice. So the center front, the side, the middle. So that's really all the pieces for this jump skirt. Once you break it down, it's not that many. Yeah, you got these elastic guides, which I mentioned earlier. Keep these. Don't cut them out. Just unroll your elastic and match it to the line that you're looking for. We have a bow pattern that I cut out just in case you guys wanted to learn how to make a bow. If you wanted to have a bow decoration for this dress. And I might have to go and get better ribbon, maybe. I haven't decided yet. So at this point, I think I'm going to save it for now. It is almost 3 o'clock. We're 2 hours and 18 minutes in. and we can do all the construction for this dress. Now that we have everything prepared, we're going to do the construction tomorrow. So part 2 of the tutorial is going to be tomorrow, you guys. I am going to export this whole stream to YouTube so that my YouTube peeps have access to this if they're not aware or familiar of the Twitch stream. Okay. So right now, does anyone have any questions before we adjourn for the day? This is basically a college class length. I will take questions. All right, Dwerman, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time. Any questions before class is dismissed? Okay. I'm so glad that this was helpful. And if you think of anything after the fact, you know where to find me on Discord. I'm also in the Lolita Sewing Collective, so if any of you are from there and you are not on my Discord server, you can certainly contact me on Facebook or through my blog or wherever. I am available. So yeah, if you think of something that you need me to show you tomorrow, just let me know and I will make a point to do that. So for now, oh, are you going to insert the back shirring panel the way they say or your way? Oh no, it's gonna be my way. Oh hell no, I'm not doing it like that. Yeah, that's gonna be a big difference and it's gonna make everybody's lives a lot easier for making this dress. It's kind of ridiculous. I have very strong opinions of how they decided to tell people to put this thing together. Those poor, poor people. Alright, everybody. So I will see you tomorrow for the continuation of the strawberry shortcake jump skirt. I guess that's what it is now. Nice catching up. See you tomorrow. Alright, Sierra. Have a good night, everybody. Have a good afternoon, good evening. We will see you later. Bye.